Smack. The slap echoed through the first-class cabin like a gunshot. Celeste didn't move. Her cheek stung, but what hit her harder was the shame. "Trespassing in first class?" the flight attendant snapped, voice sharp. "Sit down before I call security." She wasn't yelling at a grown man. She was yelling at a 12-year-old girl in hand-me-down shoes and a worn-out backpack, standing frozen in front of seat 3A. The girl had just saved a man's life. Let that sink in. 30 seconds earlier, Celeste had been in her seat in economy, head resting against the cold window, humming Beethoven softly under her breath. That's when she heard it. A sound like choking. Then gasps. Then nothing. She turned and saw him, the man in 3A, pale, rigid, head slumped to one side. Everyone else froze. First class sat still like statues. Celeste ran. No thinking, no asking, just instinct. She reached the man, checked his breathing. Shallow, jaw clenched, hands clammy. She'd seen this before. Aunt Lydia had taught her CPR back when their neighbor collapsed on the sidewalk last year. Celeste pressed 2 fingers gently against his sternum. She tilted his head, whispered a prayer. 1 second, 2, and then he coughed. He lived. And that's when the slap came. Not "thank you," not "you're a hero." Just a grown woman slapping a poor girl across the face like she was nothing. From his seat, the old man opened his eyes slowly, groggy, confused, until he saw her. His lips moved. "Eliza?" Celeste blinked. "Excuse me?" But the attendant pulled her back. "This isn't your place," she hissed. Celeste stumbled back to economy, cheeks red, heart bruised. She clutched her piano sheet music like it was armor. She didn't know yet, but the man she saved was family. And what he was about to do would change everything. The plane had landed, but Celeste still hadn't said a word. She clutched her music folder, knuckles white, eyes fixed on the seat back in front of her. Her cheek still throbbed, but it was nothing compared to the ache in her chest. Most of first class had already disembarked. Not a single person had apologized. Not the flight attendant, not the crew, not the passengers who watched it happen. Except him, the man in 3A. He waited by the jet bridge, leaning on a cane, face still pale. When he saw Celeste, he stepped forward. "You okay?" he asked gently, his voice raspy but kind. Celeste looked up, unsure how to respond. I didn't mean to cause trouble," she said quietly. "I thought he was dying. I couldn't sit there." His eyes softened. "You saved my life." There was a pause. Then the old man blinked slowly, studying her face. Something flickered behind his gaze, not just gratitude, recognition. "You look just like her," he murmured. Celeste frowned. "Like who?" He hesitated. "My daughter." That word felt like a drop of ice down her spine. "My mom's name was Eliza Morgan," she whispered. "She died when I was 2. The man stared at her. Then, slowly, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out an old photo. A younger version of him stood beside a woman in her 20s. Soft smile, auburn hair. Celeste gasped. "That's her! That's my mom!" Silence. The airport noise blurred in the background as the world around them paused. "My name's Henry," the man said softly. "Henry Vale. I'm your grandfather." Celeste's breath caught. She'd come here chasing a scholarship. She had no idea she was about to uncover the one thing she'd spent her whole life missing: family. Henry Vale sat silently beside Celeste in the airport lounge, his cane resting across his lap. The photo of Eliza lay on the table between them like a fragile truth. Too long hidden, too long denied. "I didn't know she had a child," he finally said. Celeste hugged her music folder tighter. "She never talked about you, only that she was alone." always alone. Henry winced. That's my fault. His voice was thick with something Celeste couldn't name at first. Pride, swallowed by regret. She was brilliant, he continued. Eliza could compose music by ear when she was 6. I thought she'd go to Juilliard. I thought she'd conquer the world. He paused. Then she got pregnant, out of wedlock. Refused to say who the father was. I was ashamed. Celeste's eyes narrowed. So you cut her off? Henry nodded slowly. I told her to leave. She begged me not to. I told her she was throwing her life away. His hands trembled now. I never saw her again. Celeste looked away. Her throat burned. All her life she'd thought her mother had no one, no family, no safety net. Turns out, her mother had been rejected by the one person who could have saved her. I grew up sleeping on a couch, Celeste whispered. My Aunt Lydia raised me. She teaches music at a community center. She gave up her career just to keep me fed and in school. Henry swallowed hard. I didn't just lose my daughter, he said, voice cracking. I lost everything she could have been, and now I've nearly lost you. Celeste didn't speak. But for the first time, she saw the powerful man in front of her. Not as the millionaire in first class, but as a man who had lived in silence and shame for far too long. And suddenly, she wasn't sure who had saved whom. The black town car pulled up to the curb. Henry opened the door, but Celeste hesitated. This hotel is fancier than anything I've ever seen, she whispered, clutching her folder tighter. Henry smiled gently. You deserve better than what you've been given. Inside, the lobby shimmered with chandeliers and polished marble floors. Celeste's worn sneakers squeaked on the tile as they walked to the elevator. She had questions, hundreds of them, but Henry stayed quiet, eyes distant. Only when they reached the penthouse suite did he finally speak. I've made a lot of money, he said, setting his cane aside. But I've also made a lot of mistakes. Celeste sat carefully at the edge of a leather couch, afraid to even move. Why tell me all this now? Henry turned toward her. Because I've been given a second chance, and not many people get those. He pulled out a tablet, opened his email, and began typing. His fingers were slow, deliberate. What are you doing? Celeste asked. I'm writing a statement, he said. To the press, to the world. Celeste's heart skipped. Why? Henry looked at her, his voice steady. Because I want people to know the truth. That a little girl in economy saved my life while everyone in first class did nothing, and that the airline punished her for it. She blinked, stunned. You don't have to. I do, he interrupted softly. I need to. His eyes were tired, but clear. I was silent when your mother needed me. I won't be silent now. He hit send. The press release would hit every major news outlet by morning. Celeste sat there in awe, not of the penthouse, or the wealth, or the man in front of her, but of the idea that maybe, just maybe, her voice could matter, even when the world told her it didn't. Celeste didn't sleep that night. She stayed curled on the corner of the hotel couch, knees hugged to her chest, watching the city lights flicker beyond the penthouse windows. By morning, the world had changed. Her name was everywhere. 12-year-old girl saves millionaire gets slapped by airline staff. Henry Vale's granddaughter speaks. #Justice for Celeste was trending across every platform. The footage, grainy but unmistakable, had leaked. The moment the flight attendant slapped her, the gasp from nearby passengers, the look on Celeste's face. And then came the pressure. Empire Airways scrambled to respond. At first, they claimed protocol confusion. Then, when that didn't stick, they issued a half apology, the kind written by lawyers, not humans. It wasn't enough. By noon, protests had started forming outside their terminals. Former employees came forward, sharing similar stories of misconduct and bias. A retired captain even revealed the company had quietly settled multiple discrimination cases in the past. Meanwhile, Celeste sat in silence beside Henry as reporters swarmed outside the hotel. Do you want to say anything? He asked gently. She shook her head. I didn't ask for any of this. Henry nodded. But sometimes the people who never ask are the ones most worth hearing. She looked at him, eyes uncertain. Do you regret saving me? He asked. Celeste didn't answer right away. Then she whispered, No, I just didn't think it would turn into this. That afternoon, Henry walked her into a quiet press room. No flashing lights, no chaos. Just one mic, a few reporters, and her truth. Celeste stepped forward. Voice trembling, she said, I didn't save a rich man. I saved a person who needed help. I didn't break any rules, but the way I was treated made me feel like I didn't belong, like my life didn't matter. She paused. But now, maybe someone will listen, not just for me. For the next kid who's told to sit down, shut up, and disappear. And the room went still. By the next morning, things escalated beyond anyone's expectations. The FAA released an urgent statement. We are reviewing Empire Airways' compliance with federal passenger ethics standards following recent allegations involving a minor. Then came the airports. 3 major hubs, JFK, LAX, and Chicago O'Hare, announced temporary suspensions of non-essential services for Empire flights, citing pending ethics compliance audits. Empire's stock plummeted 19% in 2 hours. But that wasn't what hit hardest. It was the name on the ethics investigation request, Henry Vale. Few knew the full story, that the man Celeste saved was more than a wealthy retiree. He was the final override authority of Air Trust Standards, the federal platform that certified airline ethics compliance for 87 airports nationwide. Celeste only found out when she caught a glimpse of the news ticker in the hotel suite. Breaking. Henry Vale triggers red flag audit on Empire Airways. She turned to Henry, eyes wide. You did that? Henry sat quietly, sipping tea. I've stayed silent for too long, but not anymore. But what does it mean? She asked. He looked at her. It means their ethics status is suspended, which means no international boarding at compliant airports, no ESG funding, no automatic gate clearance. Celeste blinked. You can do all that? I can now, he said softly. Thanks to you. That night, the Morgan Protocol began trending, a proposed ethics reform framework for airlines, co-authored by Henry and Celeste. It called for mandatory ethics officers on all domestic flights, child passenger dignity training for flight crews, and most controversially, real-time cabin incident logging, accessible to guardians and federal monitors. Some praised it. Some panicked, but no one ignored it. Celeste sat in quiet awe, watching it unfold. Just 48 hours ago, she was a scholarship kid from a small town, barely noticed by the world. Now, she was the spark behind something much bigger, and for the first time, she didn't feel small anymore. 3 days later, Celeste stood in a borrowed Navy dress in front of a microphone on Capitol Hill. She'd never even been to Washington before. Now, she was testifying. The hearing room buzzed with tension. Airline lobbyists whispered in the back. Reporters filled the aisles. And in the front row, senators, FAA officials, and child advocacy groups leaned forward, waiting. A woman in a gray suit leaned over and adjusted Celeste's mic. You'll be fine, she whispered. Just speak from the heart. Celeste took a deep breath. My name is Celeste Morgan, she began. I'm 12 years old. I play violin. I read too many books. And up until last week, I thought nobody important would ever care what I had to say. A hush fell. She continued. I didn't want attention. I didn't want cameras. I didn't want to be slapped, humiliated, or treated like I didn't belong just because I was sitting near first class. She looked up, her voice trembling but steady. I didn't break any rules. I helped someone, that's it, and for that, I was punished. One senator leaned forward, visibly moved. Celeste held her music folder tighter. But here's what I've learned, she said. Sometimes, people don't change until they're forced to look at what they've ignored. She glanced toward the panel. I'm not here to be famous. I'm here because I don't want any other kid to go through what I did, not because they're poor or young or quiet." She paused. "We deserve to be seen and to feel safe, even 30,000 feet in the air." Silence followed, then applause. Genuine, rippling, unstoppable. Henry watched from the hallway, eyes misty. Lobbyists scurried from their seats. Social media exploded. Within hours, 3 more airlines released emergency ethics statements. 2 airports committed to pilot programs for onboard ethics auditing, and the FAA announced a vote to mandate the Morgan Protocol as a federal regulation. Celeste didn't fully understand the weight of it all, but as she stepped down from the mic, a reporter near the door whispered, "That kid just changed the skies." And deep down, she knew they were right. Celeste thought the worst was over. The slap, the press, the hearings. She thought it was all behind her. But trouble doesn't always come with noise. Sometimes it creeps in quietly, through contracts, meetings, and cold smiles in warm rooms. It started with a message. Her Aunt Lydia received an envelope at their small apartment. No return address. Inside was a check for $250,000 and a short typed note. "Withdraw Celeste from public appearances. Decline all interviews. Stop pushing the Morgan Protocol. In return, you'll be taken care of, for life." Lydia brought it straight to Henry. He read it once, then again, jaw tightening. "Someone's scared," he muttered. Celeste sat on the hotel couch, her fingers clenched. "Why would they do this?" "Because you're dangerous now," Henry replied. "Not because of what you've done, because of what you might still do." Later that night, Henry called in a few favors, and within hours, it became clear. The check had ties to North Point Air, a rival airline quietly lobbying to stop the Morgan Protocol from becoming law. Turns out, if Celeste's proposal passed, North Point would lose $480 million in ESG-aligned funding tied to ethical compliance. They weren't trying to fix the system. They were trying to buy silence. But Celeste didn't back down. She didn't scream. She didn't panic. Instead, the next morning, she walked into the same press room she'd stood in days ago and held up the check. "I was told to disappear," she said calmly. "But I'm still here." She placed the check on the table in front of the reporters. "I'm 12. I play violin. I still cry when I lose a solo, but I'm not for sale." The crowd went still. Henry, watching from the wings, didn't smile. He didn't need to. Because in that moment, Celeste wasn't just his granddaughter. She was her mother's daughter. She was fire. That same afternoon, 3 senators called for an investigation into corporate interference in federal passenger ethics reform. North Point Air's CEO was summoned for questioning. Stockholders panicked. The board began to fracture. The system that tried to silence a child had just handed her the microphone instead. Henry sat quietly at his desk, a tablet in his hand, eyes fixed on the screen like it held the fate of the world. In some ways, it did. Celeste sat across from him, unsure why he'd called her in so early. She was still in pajamas, hair barely brushed. He slid the tablet toward her. "Do you know what this is?" Celeste frowned. "It looks like an app." "It is," he said. "It's the Air Trust Core Ethics Console. I built it with a team of analysts 15 years ago. It tracks and verifies real-time behavior reports from all commercial flights across 87 airports." She blinked. "Wait, you can see what happens on flights? Like, live?" He nodded. "Not video, just data points, alerts, and incident flags." He tapped the screen. "And today, it's yours." Celeste froze. "Mine?" Henry leaned forward. "This console has a feature called Emergency Red Flag Protocol. If you activate it, the system triggers a full compliance audit. Any airline flagged loses its ethics clearance instantly." She stared at him. "But I'm 12. "I know," he said softly. "And I also know you see things most adults overlook. You listen, you feel. You know the difference between polite and right." He took a deep breath. "That's why the board agreed. Temporary override access under my authority. You'll monitor incoming cabin reports for 48 hours. And if you see something unethical, you press the red button, that's it. Celeste's hands shook a little as she took the tablet. That night, she sat in Henry's study, alone, watching the console light up. Flags from flight attendants ignoring disabled passengers, alerts about separated minors, incidents logged and dismissed. And then it happened. Flight 427, en route to Dallas, showed an urgent red flag. Young Asian boy forced to move seats after comforting distressed woman in turbulence. Celeste's jaw tightened. She hovered over the button. She didn't know the boy's name, but she knew what that moment felt like. With one breath, she tapped the red icon. Across the system, screens flashed. Compliance status suspended, Empire Airways, ethics audit initiated. Within minutes, the airline's access to 23 airports froze. ESG partners issued public statements. 3 flights were grounded mid-preparation. Henry watched it unfold, eyes glassy. "She did it," he whispered. Not for revenge, not for headlines, but for one kid like her who chose kindness and got punished for it. 2 days later, the FAA boardroom in Washington was packed. Behind the closed doors sat representatives from 17 airports, 6 major airlines, 3 ESG investment groups, and the FAA's top ethics committee. At the head of the room sat a simple folder. No fancy label, just 3 words: the Morgan Protocol. Outside, a different kind of crowd had gathered. Passengers, pilots, parents holding signs that read, "Protect our kids in the skies," and "If Celeste could stand up, so can we." Celeste didn't speak that day. She wasn't allowed in the official vote. But she didn't need to be, because every person in that room had watched her testimony, had seen her refuse the bribe, had watched her press that red button not for herself, but for a boy she never met. At 10:42 a.m., the FAA passed the Morgan Protocol with unanimous approval, effective immediately. Every airline operating in U.S. airspace must appoint a child passenger ethics officer. Real-time reporting dashboards must be accessible to guardians and regulatory monitors. Minor passengers may no longer be moved, touched, or restricted without direct guardian consent. And third-party approval. A quarterly ethics audit must be submitted to retain compliance certification. By noon, 3 major airlines announced implementation teams. By nightfall, that Morgan Protocol had reached 28 million impressions across platforms. And Celeste? She sat on the roof of the hotel, a blanket wrapped around her, watching the stars. Henry climbed up beside her, 2 mugs of cocoa in hand. "You just changed the way kids fly," he said softly. Celeste shook her head. "I didn't mean to." "You didn't have to," he smiled. "That's what made it real." She was quiet for a moment. "Do you think she'd be proud?" she asked suddenly. Henry didn't have to ask who she was. "Your mom?" he said. "She'd be in the front row, probably yelling at some senator who took too long to vote." Celeste laughed through her nose. Then her eyes watered again. "She always said people should matter more than money." Henry looked at her. "That's what this protocol is. You made people matter again." 3 weeks later, Celeste was formally invited by the FAA to serve as an honorary ethics youth advisor on the newly launched Child Flight Integrity Board. She didn't wear a blazer. She showed up with her violin case and a backpack full of books, and one rule of her own. If you're going to talk about kids, at least let one be in the room. And from that day forward, the skies never looked the same again. 3 months had passed. The headlines had quieted. New scandals had taken their place. And Celeste was finally back in her old routine, sort of. She still rode the city bus to school, still helped her aunt wash dishes after dinner, and still practiced violin every night. But there were things that had changed. Forever. At JFK Airport, a glass plaque had been mounted near Gate C-22 in honor of Celeste Morgan, whose voice helped every child be heard. That day, Celeste and her aunt were flying out to Denver for a youth leadership summit. Henry had already gone ahead to meet with federal ethics advisors. Celeste just wanted to fly like a normal kid. But normal had a new meaning now. As they walked toward security, a TSA officer paused mid-step. "You're her," he said. Celeste blinked. "Sorry?" He smiled. "You're the reason we now have ethics training modules for unaccompanied minors. I read your report. Made me rethink a lot." "Oh," she said, unsure how to respond. "Thanks." He nodded, then waved her through. "Keep doing what you're doing, kid." At the gate, a baby cried in a stroller. A gate agent gently knelt beside the mom, offering juice and reassurance. No rushing, no rolling eyes. Celeste noticed. People noticed. As the plane began boarding, a woman in a gray blazer from the airline stepped over. "Celeste Morgan?" She nodded. "We'd be honored to offer you a seat in first class," the woman said, smiling genuinely. "On behalf of our crew." Celeste hesitated. She looked at her aunt, then back at the woman. "Thanks, but I'll sit in coach. That's where I started. That's where I belong." The agent smiled wider. "Respect." They took their seats. As the plane taxied to the runway, Celeste pulled out her violin. The hum of the engine mixed with the soft melody of her strings. Something old. Something her mother used to hum when bills stacked too high and hope felt too low. Across the aisle, a little boy with headphones peeked over. "You're really good," he whispered. Celeste smiled. "Want to learn?" His eyes lit up. She handed him the bow, guiding his fingers gently. No fuss, no stage, just a quiet moment between two kids. Behind them, a flight attendant watched, expression soft. Later, as they descended into Denver, the captain made a quiet announcement. "We have a very special passenger on board today, Miss Celeste Morgan. She reminded us that doing the right thing isn't a job, it's a responsibility. Thank you, Celeste." Passengers clapped lightly. Celeste's cheeks flushed pink. She wasn't famous. She wasn't rich. But in that moment she realized, maybe justice didn't always roar. Maybe sometimes it played violin at 30,000 feet. The air in Denver was thinner, crisper. Celeste stepped off the plane, violin case slung across her shoulder, hair caught in the breeze. She wasn't thinking about protocols or policies or news interviews. She was thinking about her mom. At the youth summit, she was asked to speak last. Not because she was the most famous, not because she was the youngest, but because she was the one who reminded everyone that power doesn't always come with a title. Sometimes it comes with tears, truth, and a 12-year-old who refused to stay quiet. She walked up to the mic, adjusted it down to her height, and paused. "I'm not a lawyer or a politician," she began. "I still forget to do my math homework sometimes, but I remember what it felt like to be ignored, to be called just a kid." She looked out over the audience, students, teachers, CEOs. "I didn't do any of this alone. There were people who believed I could speak before I believed it myself. And I want every kid watching this to know, you don't need permission to matter." She reached into her backpack, pulling out a folded piece of music, her mother's song, the one she'd played the night before. "This was my mom's," she said. "I didn't get to finish playing it for her, but I'm finishing what she started." The crowd rose to their feet as she drew the bow across the strings. No speeches, no laws, just a sound, clear, full, and rising. That day, her name wasn't trending. It was being remembered, not as a victim, not even as a hero, but as a girl who changed the sky and made it safe for others to dream. Before you go, tell us in the comments, if you were Celeste, would you have pressed the red button, or would you have stayed quiet and just walked away? And if this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to be reminded that even a 12-year-old can rewrite the rules. We're Karma Telltales, where every injustice finds its reckoning, and every voice, no matter how small, echoes louder than you think. Tell us where you're watching from, and don't forget to hit that like button if Celeste inspired you. We'll see you in the next story, and until then, Stand up even when your voice shakes, and no one would dare ask her to move. The sun spilled gently across Henrietta's small backyard in Arlington, Virginia. A year had passed. A year since a flight attendant's mocking laugh echoed across first class. A year since Henrietta Lawson chose silence over spectacle and watched the world shift around her. She sat on a wooden bench near her rose bushes, wearing a soft cotton gi. Not the starched white one she'd worn that day, but one that had faded over decades of quiet discipline. She held a letter in her hands, handwritten, from someone she never expected. Dear Ms. Lawson, I don't expect you to forgive me, but I need you to know that I remember everything. The sound of my own voice, the way I laughed with the others. I thought I was being witty. I wasn't. I was cruel. That flight changed you, yes, but it changed me more than you'll ever know. I resigned from Western Wings 2 months after the incident. I took a job training new crew members on dignity, on restraint, on how to see who's sitting in front of them before deciding who they are. I show them your photo. You didn't scold me. You didn't demand anything. You just held your space, and that silence did more than a lawsuit ever could. Thank you. Jillian H. Henrietta folded the letter slowly. She didn't smile. She didn't cry. She just breathed. Later that week, she returned to the dojo for a different kind of lesson. Not teaching, listening. The dojo had invited a new generation of students, young, old, multilingual, some with visible disabilities, others with invisible ones. All of them wore a GI. All of them had read her story. They didn't come to learn how to fight. They came to learn how to stand, how to sit, how to endure. May, now a junior instructor, watched as Henrietta entered. The room quieted immediately. Henrietta bowed to the class, then walked straight to the back and sat among the students. I came, she said gently, to listen. And that's what she did. As each student stood and introduced themselves, shaky voices, stammering words, different accents, Henrietta nodded after each one. When they finished, she finally rose and spoke. There are fights in life that don't involve fists, she said. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is not react the way they expect. Meanwhile, at Western Wings, a very different kind of transformation was taking place. The airline had recently partnered with the FAA to pilot a nationwide campaign called Know Who's Seated, an initiative focused on rehumanizing airline service through empathy training, equity review panels, and digital tracking of passenger dignity reports. Each participating crew member now carried a small black card clipped inside their uniform jacket. On one side, their employee ID. On the other, a single phrase, dignity is seatless. It wasn't about being perfect. It was about being aware. Henrietta was invited to the launch. She declined the spotlight. Instead, she requested that the seat, 12A from that infamous flight, be retired and placed in the Aviation Ethics Museum in DC. The airline agreed. Months later, that seat, worn leather, slightly creased, unremarkable in design, was unveiled behind glass. Below it, a simple plaque. This seat was never raised. It was held with grace, with silence, with power. In honor of Henrietta Lawson. The final ripple came not from politics or press, but from children. In a small elementary school in Michigan, a 5th grade class was asked to name someone they admired. Some said athletes, some said doctors. One girl raised her hand. I want to be like Miss Henrietta, she said, holding up a printout from an old newspaper article. The teacher asked why. Because she didn't need to hit anybody to make the whole country listen. Henrietta never set out to become anyone's example. She didn't write a memoir. She didn't go on book tours. She didn't launch a movement. She just stayed seated, in a place where she had every right to be. And by doing so, she reminded an entire nation that dignity is not loud. It's constant, it's earned, and when honored, it changes more than policy. It changes people. Final image. Henrietta, walking through the boarding gate years later. Older now, softer in step, still wearing her GI. As she approaches the first-class section, the crew stands at attention. One of them bows deeply. She nods in return. No words, just presence. Because sometimes, that's all it takes to shift the world. Henrietta didn't shout. She didn't fight back with anger. But the system still changed because she held her space. Have you ever seen someone underestimated until the moment they stood tall without saying a word? Tell us where you're watching from, and if someone like Henrietta ever inspired you to stay true, even when the world tried to push you aside. We read every comment here on Telltales, and trust me, your story might just be the one someone else needs to hear tonight.